Korey Schrock from Concord, set for dive number 3.
Korey did something really well here to finish this. He's been a little bit off on his entries and lineups today. This was a solid and determined straight up and down finish.
A low of 6, a high of 8. Total 52.80 for the round, 392.40. Next up, Ross Dreher from Avon.
Completed easily with enough time to come out, and not that shaky on the finish. A slight lack of form, a little bit out of sequence in his movement to the water, but this will score.
Waiting on the totals to be posted, 393.58.90 for the round. Total 451.90 for the Avon Oriole, Ross Dreher.
That's just a huge amount of degree of difficulty to capitalize on. 3.1. You basically you throw out the 2 highest judges' scores, the 2 lowest judges' scores, and you're left with a median 3 scores. Add them together and multiply them by the degree of difficulty. That's how we get our scores.
Vieke from Heritage Christian.
Final dive, senior year. Awesome. Inward 1.5 pike. He checks out, lifts his hips, and presents the finish well over the diving board. A little bit slow for the finish, but a straight up and down vertical dive.
Looking for the totals. 458.85 after that round thrust him to second on the leaderboard, but again, about 14 competitors remaining in this particular round. Next up, we'll go to Jason Spurlock, the senior from Crawfordsville.
It's about as rare a dive as you'll ever see at the state meet at any level, whether it be the first round or the 11th round. Front triple, the only student in the contest throwing it today, and Jason really does a nice job. He's got a tremendous amount of height and a tremendous amount of spin. He seems to be more accurate on high degree of difficulty skills than on his simple basic skills. Casey's been doing a terrific job for the last 21 dives I've seen at a state meet. And he finishes without a blemish. 22 hits in a row. What an incredible feat. Secured him a top 5 finish last year, and he's threatening to do the same this year.
Totals for Casey Johnson of Indian Creek had 415.85 coming into this final dive for the young man.
Great finishing dive, a back 1.5 pike, straight up and down vertical. Little bit heavy splash on the shoulders. That's not going to be a great deduction.
From a 5.5 to a high of 7, 43.70 for the round. His total 459.55. Next up, Hank Dussard from Bedford North Lawrence, a sophomore, the lone sophomore among the finalists.
Inward 1.5 pike, consistent and safe dive. He had some twist on the come out. If you lift your shoulders as you make your finishing move with the arms to the water, that sometimes tilts the hips to the right or left and causes some twist.
For the round, 45.60 is total 400.25. Kyle Frebel of Bremen, the senior, is next.
Let's see what
check that Homestead.
Homestead, sure. A Fort Wayne area diver and incredible athlete, incredible performer here for having his second year, competitive year here on the diving boards. He's got a list that kids work 4 years or more to obtain. Inward 2.5 somersaults. Great somersault action. He finished his dive over the water. That's the bottom line and what we're looking for. However, Kyle didn't afford himself a clean, good sequence kick out on the out. He was a little bit loose on the come out.
454.50. Great round scoring-wise for him. Total 60.45.
That's a tremendous amount of degree of difficulty in that dive, and calculate that by 6.5 across the judging panel. That's a lot of points.
Jerry Schaefer, Bremen, up next. Had a total of 328.95 coming into his final dive.
A reverse 2 somersaults in the tuck position. This was a very loose tuck. He looked like he was sitting in an automobile more than forming a round back and knees into the shoulder type of connection. Some of the judges may take off for that loose position.
5s, 6s primarily. Total 35.65 for the final round, 364.60. What Jerry Schaefer total. Next up, Brody Carter, a senior from Valparaiso, Indiana.
What I really enjoyed seeing unfold with this judging panel today is they scored this meet dive for dive, start to finish, on an even calibrated scale. Generally, the first 5 rounds at the state meet scored so agonizingly conservative that it's almost as though you're pulling a bungee cord on the leaders back into the middle group of mediocrity. This panel has rewarded great efforts from the very start of the meet to the end of the meet in a very fair and consistent way.
Carter with a total of 361 plus coming into the round and will complete his dives with a total of 398.55 total for the round, 37.20.
A good attempt here on Brody's part. He completed his reverse and half pike. I believe his coach is going to indicate he probably prefers a tighter pike position, a little more form, tightness on the press out to present the finish.
Tyler Clingerman up next from Plainfield High School, nearby Hendricks County here in central Indiana. 419.05 his total coming into his final dive.
It's a big dive, reverse 2.5 somersaults in the tuck position. We've only seen I believe 2 of those performed today, and I believe only 1 dropped in for judges' scores over 5 points.
Low for the round, 34.50 for this final round. His total 453.55.
Offer Tyler a lot of credit. You got to be bold, you got to be daring to earn yourself a spot in the finishing top 8 or whatever your goals may be for yourself in this state meet. And sometimes that involves taking a risk with a high degree difficulty skill. You got to give the kids credit for laying it all on the line and showing this audience something worth cheering about.
Jimmy Page of Crown Point up next.
This will be a safe finishing dive for Jimmy. He's got quite a buffer and quite a lead over some of the other contendants who might be going for first place today. Jimmy's going to be all right with this scoring range, and he's going to have, wow, really impressive finish.
Did well there, yeah. 50.70 the total, giving him a total of 510.20 after round 11.
It's been a while, I believe, since we've had a state champion in the boys event over 500 points. We've got a record that was just destroyed in 01 by Philip Jones, who was a world champion at the time. That same year, Mitch Richardson went 550 points.
Ingram Cade of Carmel High School up next. His total coming into the round, 344 plus. Finishes with a 30 and a total of 374.05.
Ingram just needs to learn how to put his weight into the diving board or gain more weight and then learn how to put his weight into the diving board. That lack of height he's been showing us on some of his skills did finally catch up to him a little bit on the front 2.5, which didn't allow him enough drop time to complete the skill.
Senior Ridenour from Lebanon.
Ryland jumps as well as any diver in the contest. Very strong in the legs. He's got very good range of movement in his shoulders, and he's very smooth in his transitions. He goes from straight to tuck to pike without losing any form.
Scored well that round, 55.90, a total of 481.80. Thrust him to second behind Jimmy Page, who's atop. Make way for Justin Kramer of Michigan City, a junior.
Ryland's going to be sitting in a very solid finish position with that 481 score, and that was the best reverse twister we've seen in the contest.
Michigan City's Justin Kramer.
We see a front 2.5 pike. We saw earlier last round a front double pike that will outscore this dive. Dive with the less degree of difficulty but higher judges' points.
For the round, 33.80. The total, 387.40. Next up, Zach Robbins from Huntington North.
We notice a field of athletes whose last couple dives might be getting a little more erratic, a little weaker in their finishing position. And then we may see the other half of the field with dives that just seem to come together as good as they would ever hope in any round. And that's, if we have an athlete who's got 11 solid dives, very consistent dives, it's very common that they save their best stuff to the end. And if we have an athlete who's not quite sure, this is a reverse 2.5 performed by Zach, may not have been quite consistent with this dive throughout the season, they sometimes hide that into the last round.
391.55 after a 28.50 round. Final dive, Evan Crowder, the senior from Carmel.
An unusual dive selection, however, inward double at 2.8 degree difficulty, completely finished over the water, a little bit heavy with splash, and a little bit over-rotated. There's still going to be some points here.